Hi, guys, it's Professor Fernandez again, and I am here to talk about the next step in the rhetorical situation, and it is my favorite and yours context. And the reason why I say it's my favorite is because it's my favorite to explain over and over again, and I say that with so much sarcasm because context is something that you know what it is, but to be able to explain it, it's difficult. And it's something you probably haven't been used to using. So let's get started about talking about context, and I will try to not confuse you. Okay, so right now you should be seeing, there you go. You should be seeing my what I've written here. And so let's go over this again. We're five steps into the writers for, sorry, five steps for the rhetorical situation. I got too excited there. And we know about writer's purpose. We've talked about that. We've talked about audience. We've talked about topic and what we need to do for topic and why that's like one of the longest sections. And then you have context. Context is actually probably one of the smaller sections. So let's talk a little bit about context here. Context is essentially um kind of, I'm going to say background, but I don't really mean background. But background is the idea, but not the word. Um, it's really what gives it a thing, right? Um, I'm going to say it gives it a thing. And that thing is probably like maybe it's a reason, maybe something is happening during the time something is written. Um, maybe something happened with the writer's purpose and you probably figure that out during the writer's purpose. So it's like what's going on in the background a little bit. Um, During the writer's purpose video, I told you that sometimes like the writer's purpose and context will intermesh. It'll like overlap. And this is kind of when it does overlap, when the writer's purpose is attached to context. You won't know if it's attached to context unless you do the writer's purpose, which is why we have to do these five steps as best as we can so we don't miss anything, right? Let me explain context this way. Someone explained this on social media, and I thought it was such a great example. Let's say you are asleep in your house, right? You're asleep, it's the middle of the night, maybe you like went to bed early, you're exhausted, and then all of a sudden you feel that someone is going through your door. They have a big axe, they're axing through your door, and they grab you by the ankles and they drag you out of your house kicking and screaming. Now, if you think about that, that's kind of a terrifying thing. That's a bad thing, right? But what if I told you the house was on fire? Then that's a good thing, right? The fact that the house is on fire is the context. The thing is happening, but you don't know why it's happening, or you don't know why that thing is a good thing or bad thing. It gives a little bit more of the story of the intention of things. Another example, maybe um maybe someone is coming into a classroom back when we had classrooms. If you're seeing this during the pandemic, um they're coming to the classroom and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of this, right? And you're thinking they're probably talking about like the insane amount of homework they have to do for class, right? But maybe you also need to know that they just got off the phone with maybe a family member or a friend who is just doing all the ridiculous things, right? That's the context. So you need to understand like where are people coming from? Maybe that's a better way of saying this. Where this is coming from to understand if this is good or bad, or understand like, is this the full story that we're getting? Right? There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to tell a story. And so you need the context to understand what's going on. So, my example for this series has been the letter from Birmingham jail. What if you read Letter from Birmingham Jail and didn't understand that the civil rights movement in the 60s was an actual thing? You would think that that Dr. King was just stomping his foot and saying, "No, we will have a march to talk about this." If you didn't know that there was an actual movement and this was in the middle of the movement, if you didn't know that there was a long laundry list of things that people did before they decided marching was and demonstrating was the thing to do, if you didn't know about the sit-ins, and if you didn't know about hoses washing away people, and angry dogs biting people, and African Americans being discriminated openly during the 60s and before the 60s, you wouldn't understand this at all. What also gives it more background is the idea of slavery and Reconstruction and Jim Crow, and how that all has come to a head here in the civil rights movement. That gives you context so that you understand that, oh, Dr. King isn't just saying, "I wanna demonstrate just because, I got nothing to do on a Sunday." Literally, this is a battle for existence. That's what context is. It gives you more, um, of an idea of what's going on. Something like Harrison Bergeron, another example here is a short story that if you are in my regular 1302, we are reading. We are not reading that in my honors. I'm so sorry that we're not, but we are not reading that in honors. Um, if you didn't understand that he was a World War II vet, if you didn't understand that the Emmett Till case happened shortly before he wrote it, within 5 years of writing it, then you won't understand that he was really talking about the civil rights movement and equality versus equity. Um, so eh, eh, that's what's so important about context. Now, the question is, how do you try to find the context? Well, to find context, you really have to keep in mind a couple of things. You have to have gone through the writer's purpose, right? Because sometimes writer's purpose leads to context, and it will happen more than once, right? Sometimes writer's purpose will bleed into context. It will bleed into context so much that you'll probably forget to do audience and topic and everything else in between, right? Um, and that's fine as long as you can go back, right? But you have to find context. You have to understand the writer's purpose and make sure you have done the writer's purpose correctly. You have to understand topic as well. Um, and as part of topic, um, if you are reading, say, a letter from Birmingham jail and you say racism is the topic, then what is the context to racism, right? What is the context to racism? Then you go into slavery and you go into Jim Crow, into Reconstruction, into the idealism of racism, the Ku Klux Klan, and all that, right? So, topic will actually help you get context a little bit. And sometimes, as you're doing topic, you'll do context inadvertently as well. So again, context can bleed into writer's purpose and into topic, right? So you want to do that, the writer's purpose and context as well as you possibly can, because you can get context through that. Also through writer's purpose, and to help find context, it's literally the writer's background, right? If the writer tends to write about a certain topic over and over again, but different shades of that topic over and over again, then you know that was that context, right? Why are they writing about the same thing in different shades? What is it about this topic, this theme that they're writing about? And so then you understand context, like this is the context to this. Maybe they're writing about this because they grew up in an abusive household and they write about abuse, or maybe this is kind of their motif, or not motif, wrong word, but maybe this is the themes that this writer writes about, and so we have the context here. Maybe it's something that the writer has gone through in their personal life, so you also have that context as well. So that's how you find context. You usually find it through writer's purpose, you find it through topic, and then do a little research, right? If it's something like like a letter from Birmingham jail, and you're doing research on the and you're doing topic and you're researching racism, then you probably need to also research civil rights, right? So you have a little research, a little context there. Then you understand civil rights and what's going on in Birmingham, and Birmingham being a very racist city at the time. You understand this is a response to those clergy who wrote a letter saying, "Why are you here? Why don't you just wait?" You understand the idea of waiting. And how we can no longer wait, as Dr. King said. So you have all these strategies here to help find context. Content, it's a moving target depending on what you are reading, depending on what the rhetoric is. But context is everything. I'm going to write that down and I want to circle it because it is. Going back to our example of being dragged out of the house in the middle of the night. Without context, you probably think you're being kidnapped. But if you understood that your house was on fire and it was your neighbor trying to save your life, that changes everything. Context is everything. So understanding the context and being able to debate the context as well changes the rhetoric, right? Because it's never just simple. Humans are complicated and complex and flawed, as is their art. So that's all I got for you for context. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.